Welcome to another episode of Pirkei Avot, as we're now starting Mishna 17, and we dedicate this episode in memory of Levy ben Moshe Esther and Elishevel bad Leah, and also to Shlomo ben Moshe Esther. So, Mishnah 17, Michael, what do you say?
Okay, so Mishnah 17 starts with, introduces Shimon, who is Rabban Gamliel's son. So let's start the Mishnah. Shimon beno Omer. Shimon, his son, used to say, Kol Yomai Gadalti ben HaChachamim. All my days I grew up amongst Rabbonim, or Chachomim, v'lo matzati laguf tov ela shtika, and I have found nothing better for a person and his body than silence. V'lo midrash hu ha'ikar. Study is not the most important thing, ela ha'ma'aseh, but actions. V'chol ha'marbe devarim mevi chet. And whoever indulges in too many words brings about sins. So, let's analyze this Mishnah. Let's start with the basic concept of what he's saying. Nothing is better for a person than silence. He mentions his body for laguf. This could be let's look at what Rambam has to say. In this Mishnah, Rambam has a very extended commentary on the concept of speech and his concept of divisions of speech. So if you bear with me, this may take a few minutes, but it's definitely worthwhile. So, Rambam, the wise one has already stated, with many words there is no lack of transgression. I think this is from Tehillim. This is from Proverbs 10:19. And the reason for this is that most words add superfluity and sin, as I will elucidate now. As when a man increases his words, he will certainly transgress, since it is impossible that there will not be in his words one word that is not fit to say. And one of the signs of the wise is minimization of words, and one of the signs of the foolish is the multitude of words. We heard this back in Hilchot Deot in his Mishnah Torah. Rambam continues, and the sages have already said that the minimization of words is proof of the high virtue of the forefathers. And when a man was pedigreed, they would say, the pedigreed one of Babylonia is the quiet one. And it is said in the book Hilchot Deos that one of the sages was seen to be silent, since he did not say speech that was not fitting to speak, and he only spoke a very little. And they said to him, what is the reason for your great silence? And he said, I have examined all speech, and I have found it divided into 4 divisions. The first division is completely injurious, without benefit, like the cursing of people or vulgarity, and similar to them, such that to speak with them is complete idiocy. And the second division is injurious on one side but beneficial on the other side, like the praise of a man to gain benefit from him. But in that praise will be that which will anger his enemy, and so the speech will injure the one being praised, and one should refrain from this speech because of this reason, such that they not speak things from this division as well. And the third division is words that have no benefit and no injury, like most of the speech of the masses. How was this so-and-so wall built? How was this hall built? Or the telling of the beauty of a house, or the talk of a multitude of delicacies of country so-and-so, and similar to these. These are extraneous words. One who says such words is excessive and there is no benefit in them. And Rambam continues, and the fourth division are words that are completely beneficial, like the speech about the wisdoms and about the virtues, and the speech of a person about what is specific to him, in that his life depends upon them, and through them will his existence continues, and he must speak this. He said, any time I hear words, I examine them, and if I find that they are from this fourth division, I speak them. But if they are from the other divisions, I am silent about them. And the author of the Hilchot Deot examined this man and his wisdom, which is to avoid three-quarters of speech, and found that the wisdom is the one that needs to be taught. And I say that speech is divided into 5 parts according to the Torah's obligations. Number 1, we are commanded about it. Number 2, we are warned against it. Number 3, the disgusting. Number 4, the beloved. Number 5, the permissible. The first division is that which one is commanded about, and it is reading the Torah and studying it and reading its analysis. And this is an obligatory positive commandment, as is stated in Devarim chapter 6 verse 7, and you shall speak in them, and it is weighty as all of the other commandments put together. And it has already been said about the imperative of study, that which not even a part of would fit in this entire composition. The second division is the speech that is forbidden and that we are warned against, such as false testimony, tale-bearing and cursing, and the words of the Torah teach about this division, and also included are foul speech and evil speech. And the third division is the disgusting, that has no benefit to a man for himself, but is not a sin and not rebellious, like the speech of the masses about what happened and what was and what are the customs of King so-and-so in his chamber, and how was the cause of so-and-so's death, and how did so-and-so become rich. And the sages called these idle talks, and the pious ones made efforts for themselves to refrain from this division of speech. And it was said about Rav, the student of Rabbi Hia, that he did not speak idle talk all of his days, and from this division is also when a person disgraces a virtue or praises a vice, whether they be intellectual or dispositional. And the fourth division is the beloved, and that is speech in praise of intellectual virtues or dispositional virtues, and in disgrace of both types of vice, to awaken the soul to the virtues with stories and songs, and to prevent the vices in these same ways, and also to praise the distinguished and to acknowledge their virtues, so that their practices be valued in the eyes of people, and that they walk in their ways, and to disgrace the bad about their vices, so that their action and their memory be disgraced in the eyes of people, and that they distance themselves from them and not act according to their practices. And this division, meaning to say study of the virtuous traits and distancing from traits of vice, is called Derech Eretz, the way of the world. Rambam continues, the fifth division is the permissible, and is the speech about what is specific to a person, about his business, his livelihood, his food, his drink, his clothing, and the rest of what he needs for himself. And it is permissible. It is not beloved or disgusting. Rather, he will not speak it. And with this division, a person is praiseworthy when he minimizes his speaking of it. And the men of ethics have warned against increasing words in it. But the forbidden and the disgusting does not require a warning nor a commandment, as it is fitting to be completely silent from it. However, the commanded and the beloved speech, if a person could speak it in all of his days, it would be good. However, one must be careful about 2 things. The one is that his deeds match his words, as they said, and I quote, "Pleasant are the words that come out of his mouth, of one who does them." So practice what you preach. And about this matter did he intend in his saying, and it's a quote, "And the exposition of Torah is not what is essential, but the action." And the sages say to righteous one that specifically he teaches the virtues in their saying, "Expound, and for you it is fit to expound." And in Tehillim chapter 33, and the prophets stated, "Rejoice, righteous ones in the Lord, for the straight is praise beautiful." And the other matter is terseness, and that he makes efforts to maximize content with few words, and not that the matter be the opposite. And this is what they said in Pesachim Daf 3 Amud Aleph. A man should teach his students in the brief way. And know that songs that are composed in any language that it be must be examined for their contents, if they are following the way of speech that we have divided. And indeed I have clarified this, even though it is clear already, because I have seen elders and pious men from the people of our Torah, when they are at a wine party like a wedding or something else, and a person wants to sing an Arabic song, even if the subject of that song is praise of courage or generosity, and that is from the division of the beloved, as well as when it is in praise of wine, they push it off with every angle of distancing, and it is not permissible according to them to hear it. And when the lyricist sings one of the Hebrew canticles, it is not bad in their eyes if it is from the things that we are warned against or which are disgusting, and this is complete foolishness, as speech is not forbidden or extraneous or beloved or disgusting or commanded in its saying because of the language that it is in, but rather because of its content. As if the content of that song is virtue, he is obligated to say it in any language that it may be. But if the intention of that song is vice in any language that it should be, it is forbidden to say it in any language that it should be. Rambam continues, I also have what to add to this. When there are two canticles and they express the same content of arousing the power of desire and praise for it and to rejoice the soul with it, and it is vice and it is from the division of disgusting speech, since it enthuses and arouses a trait of vice, as is clarified in our words of the 4th chapter, but one of the two canticles is in Hebrew and the one is in Arabic or vernacular, listening to the Hebrew and speaking it more disgusting to the Torah due to the level of the language, as it is only right to use it for virtues. All the more so if they're required to put it in a verse from the Torah or from the Shir HaShirim about the matter, as then it goes from the division of the disgusting to the division of the forbidden, and what is warned against. As the Torah forbade to make the words of prophecy types of song for vice and disgusting things. And since we have mentioned evil speech from the division of forbidden speech, I saw it fit to elucidate it and to mention a little of what is mentioned about it, as people are in great blindness about it, and it is the great sin that is always in people, and all the more so about what the sages said in Baba Batra, Daf 164 Amud Base, that a person does not escape from tangential evil speech on any day. And who would give that we escape from evil speech itself? And evil speech is the recounting of the evils of man and his blemishes and the disgracing of a man of Israel in whatever side of disgrace that it be. And even if the disgrace was lacking as was spoken, as evil speech is not that he lies about a man and attribute to him that which he does not do, as that is called putting out a bad name on his fellow. Right, correct. However, evil speech is that when he disgraces the disgraces of a person, even about his actions that he truly does, such that the speaker sins and the one who hears him sins. They say in Arachim, Daf 15 Amud Base, there are three that evil speech kills: the one who speaks it, the one who listens to it, and the one they are speaking about. And they said the one who listens to it more than one who speaks it. Because obviously we learnt about this, he gives him an audience and he energizes the Lashon Hara. And Rambam continues, and tangential evil speech is the mention of the blemishes of a man without clarification. Shlomo said about his matter that sometimes one who mentions the blemishes of a person without clarification shows that he does not have knowledge of that which is understood from his words, and that he did not intend this, but rather intended another matter, as he says in Proverbs chapter 26, verse 18 to 19, like a madman scattering deadly firebrands, arrows, is one who cheats his fellow and says, I was only joking. And Rambam continues, and one of the sages from amongst the wise showed him, and the rabbi condemned the act. And one of the sages from amongst the wise ones already praised in a large group the writing of a scribe that he showed him. And the rabbi condemned the act of the praiser and said in Mishna Arachim 3:5, "Go and stop your evil speech." He meant to say that you are causing his disgrace with your praise of him in the large group, as from them is one who loves him and one who hates him, and his enemy will be forced to mention his blemishes and his evils when he hears his praises. And that is an extreme distancing from evil speech. I think he mentioned that in Hilchot Deot. And the language of the Mishna, in the Mishna Arachim, is, and I quote, "The judgment against our ancestors in the wilderness was sealed only because of their evil speech," meaning to say the matter of the scouts, the spies, about which it was stated, and they put out slander of the land. And they, Olav Shalom, said in Arachim 15 Aleph, "And if these that only put out a bad name on trees and stones became liable for what they became liable, how much more so is it for someone who speaks out about the disgrace of his fellow man?" And this is the language of Tosefta in Talmud Yerushalmi Peah, chapter 1, Mishnah 1. "For 3 sins is their retribution to a person in this world, and he does not have a share in the worlds to come. These are idolatry, sexual immorality, and murder." And Lashon Hara corresponds to all of them together. And they said this in Gemara Arachim 15b, that with idolatry comes the expression "the big," and that is its stating in Exodus 32:31. I quote, "Alas, this people is guilty of a big sin." And with the sin of sexual immorality also comes the expression "the big," and that is its stating in Bereshis 39:9. And I quote, "And how can I do the big evil, this one?" End quote. And with the sin of murder also comes the expression "the big," and that is in stating in Bereshis chapter 4 verse 13, "Is my sin too big to carry?"
Gadol ha'avon minasah. That's from Cain.
Yeah. But with evil speech comes the expression "the big ones," plural. It means to say that it corresponds to the 3 of them together.
Oh, that's
and that is it's stating in Tehillim 12:4, and I quote, "Tongue speaking big things," end quote. And they spoke about this unsettling sin very much. And in the end of that which is said is that, and I quote, "Anyone who speaks evil speech denies the fundamental faith." That is stated in Tehillim 12:5. They say, "By our tongues we shall prevail, with lips such as ours, who can be our master?" End quote. Indeed, I have said a little of what they said about this sin, even though I have written at length, in order that a man distance himself from it with all of his ability and make his intention to be quiet, meaning to say from this division of speech. So fantastic commentary there. Really a chapter in itself, from Rambam.
He crystallizes all the essential points of Lashon Hara in such a short space of time. The Chofetz Chaim obviously elucidated on this with his Sefer Shmirat HaLashon, which I'm actually going through at the moment. If, by the way, if you want to subscribe to my daily Shmirat HaLashon, send me an email to rabbikalati@gmail.com. But you can see the Rambam elucidates the essence of Lashon Hara and how severe the repercussions are in Shamayim for this unspeakable sin, which is equivalent to the 3 major sins.
Yeah. So now let's continue with the Mishnah. So the second thing that Shimon states is Lo ha-midrash hu ha'ikar ela ha-ma'aseh. He says also, study is not the most important thing, but actions. So obviously study is important, but really the purpose of study is to improve your actions. And what does Bartanura comments on this statement? "And you shall know that silence is better for him, since even interpretation, homily, and discussion of Torah, of which there is nothing greater, the main attainment of reward is for the action. And someone who teaches but does not practice what he teaches, it would have been better if he had been silent and had not taught." But also, I just want to add my own just philosophy to action and study. I've discussed with you, Rav Mashiach, about the concept of a curriculum in yeshiva that should include perhaps a segment of the day to take the students out and perform Gemulut Chasadim for people. It may be collecting shopping or doing shopping for elderly people, or somehow helping people who need help. There should be maybe a couple of hours a day, and perhaps as a reward for these different teams that go out and do these prescribed periods of Gemulut Chasadim, the team that comes back with doing the most acts of kindness is perhaps afforded private chevrusa time with the Rosh Hashiva. That would be a great competition for students, and it would be a nice involvement with the Rosh Hashiva as well. That imagine if you do good during the day, you'll give them private time to study with the Rosh Hashiva. How enthused you would be!
What a fantastic idea! I mean, I know there are such schemes in the seminary world. I haven't heard about it in the yeshiva world. I know separately they do such things like Shabbos Walk is and Gift are two organisations that spring to mind that do these things. Shabbos Walk is where it's literally developed through the idea of on Shabbat people would go out and do acts of chesed for people in hospital, people who are unable to leave the houses. Of course, it's become very difficult now with the pandemic, but it's a very, very popular thing. But it's interesting to have that in the yeshiva world, to put into practice what they're learning. I think it's a great idea.
So and so perhaps there is the one last thing. The Bartanura comments on his last statement, where he says, whoever indulges in too many words brings about sin. Bartanura brings an interesting perush about Chava. He says, as such, we have found with Chava, who increased words and said, regarding the apple, God said, do not eat from it and do not touch it. And she added touching, about which she was not forbidden. And the snake pushed her until she touched it and said to her, in the same way as there is no death from touching, so too is there no death from eating. And she would perhaps gain confidence to eat it. And from this she came to sin, as she ate from the fruit. This is what Shlomo said, as a quote, do not add to Hashem's words, lest he reprieve you and you be found a liar.
By the way, it wasn't an apple. It was anything but an apple. Is a Christian idea.
Oh, okay.
It was. There's a few different. The Gemara talks about it. Wheat or grapes or etrog or etc. But
okay. Definitely
not an apple. That's Apple Mac.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
So they get it.
So that was there was a long commentary on the divisions of speech by Rambam, and I think that's worth listening to again if you get the chance, because there was a lot of amazing information there and a lot of halachot that can be gleaned from there. But yeah.
Fantastic, Michael. Thank you so much. Very, very interesting, especially what the Rambam said there. So that brings us to the end of Mishna 17. Next time we convene, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to be finishing off the Perek. That's very exciting. So with that, we wish you a wonderful and fantastic week, and we'll see you next time.